everybody, I'm Blitz, and I've partnered up with Paradox to bring you a few tutorials on their newest game, Surviving the Aftermath. It's a new early access colony survival game that is now available. So with that said, today we're going to build a foundation of knowledge into the game and learn about buildings and area of control. As we talked about in the first two videos, buildings have work areas. Some buildings, like a fishery, have a static work area that allow the building to continue gathering resources in a specific spot. Pay attention not to overlap these work areas too much, as the buildings will have production penalties. Work areas for other resource buildings, like the scrapper, can be moved once the scrap pile has run out of resources to collect. You can resize the work area with the control in the mouse wheel or with the triggers on your controller. Now that we've talked about the different work areas, let's talk about the different types of buildings. Some of these buildings require science points to unlock in the tech tree, so make sure you send your specialists out to gather the science, and you can use those to unlock the technology. So let's start with some of the fun stuff. The buildings in the happiness tree give happy thoughts to colonists who visit them. The higher-end buildings like the game arcade and the movie theater require a lot of resources, including the fun box that is only found on the world map. But the benefit is very substantial. As you can imagine, some of these buildings also require electricity. Now, speaking of electricity, solar panels and wind turbines act a lot like the wells that we talked about in the first food and water tutorial. They give a static amount of electricity and can be stored in batteries, so you can use the extra energy in case of an emergency. These buildings also do not have a work area, so you can stack them right next to each other. Just make sure your colonists have access to them when they require repairs. The next group of buildings is the decoration buildings. These are mostly lights and plants and flyers and stuff for colony decoration. A lot of these decor items are unlocked with other buildings in the tech tree, and they seem to be only cosmetic. Now we have a weird category. This is the exploration items. The first one is the gate, and we'll talk about that in the next tutorial mainly. Basically opens your colony up to the world map. The other two buildings in this tree are the radar and the trade center. The radar, as you can imagine, gives you upcoming warnings for disasters, and the trade center attracts bigger trade caravans so you can buy and sell in large quantity. Once you do have that gate, you'll start getting regular traders, but that trade center opens it up to bigger caravans. Health and safety buildings are pretty much self-explanatory. The field hospital is an upgraded medical tent where you can treat your colonists when they get injured. The field hospital heals faster and can hold more patients, so make sure you build that once you have the resources and the technology to unlock it. The school is very important and helps you educate your children, which increases their work effectiveness once they become adults. And the burial pit, well, that holds dead people. It only holds 20 people, so make sure you have like 10 or 12 of them to hold enough when bad things go worse. I'm kidding, no. You don't really need 10 or 12. Just make sure you have enough to hold the dead people, because you get bad thoughts if you have dead things lying around. And the final building in this tree is my favorite one, the environmental station. This building allows you to remove the radioactive waste from your building site. You know those little green puddles that are really super annoying that you can't build your roads through? Yeah, it gets rid of them, and then you can build your roads through them, which is cool. So the next two tabs are for resources and refining resources into products. If you want more depth information on these tabs, make sure you check out the previous tutorial, and that goes through pretty much all of them. Basically, they provide all of your resources and your products for your colony. And after that are the food and water production. We talked about these two in the first tutorial. If you want to deep dive into the wells and figure out what they are, you can go ahead and look at that one. Basically, you'll use your science points to unlock larger farms or deeper wells or specific buildings like a cookhouse or mess hall to cook your food. Now that we've gone through all of the buildings, we're going to talk about the stockpiles. They're for your goods, and each one has their own purposes. The stockpile is a generic building that holds basic resources like planks and concrete. Food stockpile holds food, as you can imagine. The warehouse holds the second-tier resources like tools and clothing and medication that you find in the overworld. Or general storage is the repurposed shipping container that holds a large quantity of food, resources, and high-end goods. Make sure you have enough stockpiles to hold all of your equipment around so your base doesn't get cluttered. And finally, we have shelter, as you were probably clicked on this video for. There are 6 different buildings here, and you can imagine that every colonist wants a place to lay their head down and rest at night. The emergency shelter and the shanty are cheap in the starting buildings. The colonists can't really reproduce in those buildings, and they don't provide much shelter from catastrophes and radiation. The tenement and the shanty are a bit better buildings and give some shelter from radiation and catastrophes. They're still unlikely to make the babies, but that is for the houses and the 2-stories. These are basically the love shacks. Babies are produced and colonists can get good protection from radiation and catastrophes. And finally, we have the roads. Roads make travel between points much faster. Roads just take time to produce and no resources, actually. So that's kind of cool. Make sure you grid out your base so you can have a good walkways and thoroughfares through it. And then you can use your technology to also upgrade to paved roads, which makes walking even faster. So thanks for watching. This concludes our third tutorial on surviving the aftermath. In the next tutorial, we'll dive deep into the gate and the special events that can happen in your colony. So may your buildings stand strong and your colonists live happy. We'll see you next time.